We are here. We are back. We are queer, and I'm just getting used to it. We're here with Jasmine,
Hi.
and we have a very special guest with us. Welcome in Queer Apollo from the Twitch sphere for those of you who come in. Hi, baby.
Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for
It's
joining us.
good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm really glad to have you here. You're our very first, and I don't know. I mean, we might have other people at some point this year, but
Yeah.
you're our very first this year, and our
Yay.
first guest of season three,
hmm
which
Season
is,
3.
yeah, 3 seasons of this podcast.
hmm You better count them. One, two, three. It's
They're
so
like
good
the
to have you
rules.
on, though, Apollo. I'm so excited.
Oh
I am
yeah.
too. I'm super excited to meet you and to chat
Yeah,
with you both.
I know. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. What are we talking about today, Jer?
So today our theme is D&D, Dungeons and
Yes.
Dragons.
Yes.
Oh.
And
Yes, yes,
Apollo
yes.
happens to be kind of an expert on this situation.
Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't say expert. I just have a lot of experience and yeah.
how much is a lot?
Uh like 10 years.
Oh my
So, not
God.
an expert at all.
You're an expert. Don't they say it
Well,
takes like 10,000 hours to be an expert at something? Girl, 10 years. That's amazing.
yeah, it's fun. I love it, you
hmm
know. But it's all a very old game. So
Mm,
Yeah.
there's definitely people who are out there with like decades of experience, and I'm
sure.
like, I don't want to be like saying I'm an expert, and they're like, oh, actually, they don't know the rule for this, and this, and you know,
Mhm.
Actually, they
Yeah.
never
yeah,
read Tome 385.
they read the appendix in the
Yeah.
third book.
That was a very important tome, and they
Mhm.
missed it. So, they're actually not an expert, but thanks. So, what
Click.
got you into it? What got you into D&D in particular?
Yeah, it's really funny because it wasn't like particularly D&D. It was actually like a Star Wars tabletop RPG that was based on D&D.
Holy crap.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and so like I think D&D was kind of uh it was like disguised. It was like a secret
Mm,
before I knew what
Yeah.
it was. I think so I had like a straight best friend in college, and
mm.
he was my like gateway drug into this because he introduced it, and I kind of had a little crush on him. So I was
Aw.
like, yes, I'll do whatever you want. And he invited me to play this, and it was really fun to like create my
Mhm.
own character and like learn all these abilities and like as a group tell this story together and
Right.
like find our identities and
Yeah.
figure out what we're doing, you know. And then
Ugh,
I fell in love with it, and then that was back when I lived in Arkansas. And so
You lived in
the
Arkansas.
yes, let me
gosh.
tell you, it was not fun.
Ugh. But to
So
have a
glad I
little
moved.
D&D community there and you
Yeah.
guys started, that's so nice.
Hmm.
That's great.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
and the
you lived
passion
in
just kind of followed
Arkansas.
me.
I'm like
Yeah.
so hung up on this right now.
People, I don't know. I think it's because I'm gay and I'm Asian, and they're like, that doesn't sound like Arkansas to me.
Right.
I don't know, it
But
could be.
yeah,
You're from there. Yeah. I
yeah.
Wow.
think you I
That's
don't know.
incredible though.
I think it's great that you had that community though, the D&D. I gotta say, for myself, I grew up hearing about D&D and I was just so jealous that none of my other friends were as nerdy. They just were not. And it's impossible for me to find like a good group to do D&D with, you know?
Mm,
And I always wanted to join. I never knew how to play, but like I always wanted to. And then finally, I feel like D&D exploded recently with podcasts and shows now. So I'm like beyond grateful that we're at the point that we are at now with D&D because I feel like I'm immersed in it, you know?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's super important that your first D&D or tabletop RPG experience needs to be good. Because
Yeah.
Mm,
if it's bad, it'll like ruin it for you and you won't want
Yeah.
to do it again. So
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
really important to like find the good game master or GM or dungeon master
Hmm.
and a good group of people because you don't want to feel shame.
right.
No, no, or embarrassed by any
Right.
means. Yeah, just
You
because
just you're
you
there
made
to
a
have
silly
fun.
roll. Yeah. Yeah.
What,
Um,
in your opinion, makes like a bad experience happen? Is it sort of a combination of the GM not listening to the needs of the party? Is it the party sort of acting out against the GM? Some combination of both
mm,
of those?
Yeah, I'd say a combination of both. I think one of the major things is communication and expectations
Mm,
because sometimes people will come in and they just want to battle. They
mm.
don't want to role play or they're not there for the story. They're there to like
mm,
crunch numbers. They're there to win, you know?
Mm.
yeah, level up.
And yeah, and if the GM doesn't know exactly what kind of experience the players are wanting, like it's so easy to fuck it up and like do something that they don't want. And then if you don't have that open communication, it's like you never know if they're actually having fun or if they're just like there to be there.
That
Oh my
completely makes
gosh.
sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. How do you handle those kinds of situations where you know you're the party is going in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
a lot of GMs, myself included, do what's called a session zero. So
Ooh.
it's not an actual like you don't start playing immediately. It's kind of like
Yeah.
when you sit around and talk about like what you want to do. So I always
Oh,
go around, make sure I know what kind of game people want to play. If they like puzzles, they like role playing, they like battle. It's also
Ooh.
really important for safety because there are safety tools that you want to keep in mind of
mm.
like trigger warnings or certain subjects that you do not want to touch or
Oh.
things like that.
That's so considerate.
Hmm.
Wow.
I feel like those are kind of like newer things that are new to D&D.
Yeah.
Um, like I think we're just becoming a little bit more aware
Yeah.
about how immersed we become in things and
Yeah.
how like some things just aren't cool.
Right.
Hmm. I think
Absolutely.
some people forget that the DM and the GM they play as well, you
Hmm.
know. So not only is the party playing, but the GM is playing with you and not always against you, you know.
Yeah.
So I wish have you had an experience where people have just been like completely open to the storyline and flow with it, you know?
Yeah, I think more often than not, that's the experience. And like as a
Yeah.
GM, that's what I aim for is like it's collaborative storytelling. It's not just me telling a story and
Mm,
you rolling dice.
yeah.
Like we're
Yes, and right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Are you a theater girly?
No. Oh my God, what? You wanna sponsor me? Get like Leo DiCaprio. Okay, stop.
I'm just like I'm a theater girly, so I know. Like the yes and is like, okay.
But it's truly yes and. I mean, it really is building off of each other, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Mm.
I think one of my worst experiences was my first time GMing. And I was so, I'm so scared of like fucking up. So I was like
Mm.
reading straight
Oh.
from the book and like
Oh.
someone, one of my friends, it was their first time playing D&D and they had like this cute idea of like, can I like jump from the tree over into the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, no. And it shot them down. They didn't want to play D&D again.
Oh
And I was
No.
no.
like, yeah, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? Like, we're here to play a
Oh,
game, we're here to have fun. And
yeah.
so they call it the rule of cool, which is
Mm.
where
Mm.
when something isn't like particularly in the rules, but if it helps your players have fun and it'll like enhance the story, like why the hell not?
Mm.
Yes. And what?
Yes, anding. Yes, and
Yes.
what?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's fantastic. Because for some reason, I always thought that DMs they just had to pull their narratives from the book, And don't get me wrong, the book is fantastic. Not that I've read it. I'm just saying it's got to be. I mean,
Mhm.
the game's been popular for decades, you know.
Right.
And I don't know what I was thinking that everybody plays the same storyline. They don't, huh?
Yeah, a
Should be
lot of
different.
people do their own storylines. They call it home brewing. Like,
Mm.
Ooh.
yeah, and I'm a fan of the modules, which are like the pre-written books.
Uh-huh.
But like my partner actually does a lot of home brewing for his games, and it's not necessarily D&D, but it is a tabletop RPG, which is what D&D is.
Yeah.
How much work goes into making a homebrew?
Oh,
A lot.
wow. I
Like
can
he's
only
also
imagine.
yeah, he's also such a nerd when it comes to history, so he'll do a lot of
Oh,
research.
Cute.
wow.
Yeah,
Like
like we
sitting
learned
down and
so
trying to
much.
make sure everything's super accurate, both in the world
Yeah,
and with the characters
Wow.
and people that show up.
yeah. Like we did one that was like based on history, and it's like generational. So like we do 5 sessions as like ancient Greeks, and then the next session we're like
Ooh.
Vikings, and so
Oh.
he'll learn about like all the different gods that they worship, and they become
Oh.
characters. Yeah, it's
That's
That's
super
so
cool.
really
neat.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes. I would love to do a Greek god one. That'd be
Oh, so
amazing.
fun.
So like how
Ah,
long does that take for him to get all that together?
He'll work on it throughout the week. So we play like every 2 weeks, I think.
Mm.
And so we have
solid.
like we have these artist dates where we both just go to like a restaurant or like a coffee shop, and we'll just like work on our little RPG stuff.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I love
So,
that.
what I'm wondering is this, okay? So, if let's say that there's a scenario, right? How many different kind of avenues would one have to think of, depending on what the character is doing, the character in action? I mean, like, are you thinking on the spot of the next step in the
Yeah.
story as it
Yeah.
happens?
I think a lot of times you have like a general idea of where things are gonna go, but
Mm.
honestly,
Oh,
sometimes the players will just derail everything.
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
What do you do?
I like to just roll with it because I
Yeah,
think that's more interesting. Because it's kind of like that horror story where I was like, no, you can't do that. Like
right.
that,
Mm.
it feels like that shuts everything down to
Right.
where instead of being part of the fun of a tabletop RPG is that you can do anything, or at least try anything.
Right.
Whereas with a video game, you're like confined to certain
Mm,
choices.
Mm.
mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, I think that's why tabletop RPGs are so um, attractive to the queer community, is that you're not confined to the choices that people are subscribing to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like you can create your own character. You identify yourself
Mm-hmm.
by creating a character.
Right.
Mhm.
And you're not confined to any rules or regulations or anything. You can literally do it however you want to do it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. So,
Yeah.
my big question that I wanted to ask when it comes to GMing, what are you
Hmm.
normally looking for when it comes to your group dynamic? What are the things you
Yeah.
keep your eye out for in the
Yeah.
pre-construction, during? Because I'm sure that there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah. I think it's getting to know the players about how they play. Like, of course, I want to make sure that everyone feels safe.
Right.
And so, like, I I'm kind of nerdy. I have like this questionnaire that I have players fill out
Oh.
so that I know like what can be involved in the storyline and what
Mm.
shouldn't be.
Mm.
And then if anyone's like hard no, I don't want any children harmed
Mm.
at all, then in our session 0, I'll talk to everyone and be like, hey, these are some of the hard lines that we will not cross ever.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah. And
Oh my
there's
God.
a certain safety tool that I love to use called lines and veils. So lines are like hard lines that you don't cross. It doesn't come up. If someone brings it up in a session, we're like, hey, that's a line. We're just gonna pause, rewind, and then do something else.
Mm.
And then a veil is like if someone's not into having like a sex scene in the middle of it, we'll like say, oh, it slowly fades to black, and then we'll move on.
Mm.
Mm.
A little transition. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
a veil. And yeah, those are kind of the things that I look for is, again, I think it's the communication and just
Yeah.
making sure everyone's there for fun and not trying to um, like enforce their ego on people, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I could see that being a problem. Someone just wants to constantly kill, 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 not really
Yeah.
engage in the storyline. When you come across that kind of person, does that make you not really want to play with them anymore? I'd imagine.
I feel like with that kind of person, I would rather match them up with other people who want to kill, kill, kill. And then
Mm.
that can just be the campaign is like there are tons of enemies coming at you. How do you want to kill them? That way they're still having fun. I know
Right.
how they like to have fun, and everyone else is having fun.
Wow.
And everyone's getting murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. You
That's
seem like the
smart.
best DM.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. So there's so much communication. There's so much
Yes.
conversation that has to be involved both ways. Have you personally ever had a time where you're like, girl, I have no social battery, I have no energy, and now I have to sit down for potentially what, like 2, maybe 3 hours?
Hmm.
Have you ever just like canceled and been like, nah, I'm not doing it tonight, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely dropped out of a couple of campaigns where it was just like, um, it's also you share, like it's
Mm,
collaborative storytelling. You share the
Yeah.
spotlight, and
mm,
some people have like that main character energy that they
Mm,
put upon themselves, and you're like, no, we're all playing this together. This
mm.
isn't just you playing a video game, you know?
right. Right.
So definitely had those um, players that have, you know, made the adventure a little less fun for me. So I
Mhm.
just kind of remove myself from it.
How collaborative is that process? Because I always kind of thought it was sort of like however many people, 4 or 5 people, are sitting around at a table, and there's one person who's sort of narrating, like, you wake up in a prison cell
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm.
you don't know how you got here. How do you get out? And then they all sort of kind of discuss what's next. All right, you've escaped. Now you're off to here. And that one person sort of just narrating the whole thing as everyone's sort of making decisions about the immediate space. They're in like an escape room almost.
Yeah, that's actually like one of my first adventures was like everyone wakes up in a prison cell and they have to escape.
How
Like
funny.
it can't just be like the GM telling you the ways that you can escape. Like
Mm,
everyone
Yeah,
comes
no.
up with it together.
Right.
And so I
got it.
think that's the fun part of like, oh, well, I can pick a lock and then like that's a whole like fork in the road that you could take. And then there's also other people in the jail cell that you can talk to. And then once you do get out of the jail cell, they're like underground and like in the middle of nowhere. So how do you
Ugh.
find your way home? And it's dangerous down there. So like it's
I'm
important to
scared.
stick together and yeah, it's I don't know.
Wow.
There's just so many, like you were saying, there's so many avenues to take that I
Right.
think it really depends on the players
Mhm.
Mm,
because they're just as
Wow.
important.
But it's good that there's a little bit of a sense of predictability. Like you can predict, yes, they're gonna escape. Now what's
Hmm.
next? Because that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
That's good.
it's such a fine line of being a GM of like being overly prepared,
mm.
but like being
Ooh.
open for them to just be like, you know what? Actually, we're not going to go up to the surface. We're going to go deeper down. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't have a map for that, but we can try that.
So
Uh,
what do you do in situations where they get stuck? Like they're in that jail cell and you're like, you don't know how you got here. How do you get out? And they've exhausted every option. And
Clueless.
then, right, totally clueless. They're just
Yeah.
like knocking on
Staring at each
the
other.
walls at some point and circle jerking. And you're
Passing
like,
out.
we've been here for 45 minutes, and
Uh-huh.
in game, it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we got to get moving out of here
Yeah.
soon. Otherwise, y'all are going to die.
Uh-huh.
Like, what do you
I
do
think
as a GM at that point?
Yeah, I always have like a backup plan of
Mm.
like if they randomly start knocking on different parts of the wall, I'd be like, "Oh, you happen to knock up on a secret tunnel."
Ooh, like a little handout. That's
Yeah,
generous.
or
I would
like
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, or it could also be like something outside of the players, like someone's attacking the jail, and while you've been searching for this, like an explosion happens that busts open the door. Like,
So you're like, here's a free escape card. Get the fuck out
yeah,
of this jail cell now,
yeah,
bitch.
Let's
exactly.
move on.
Let's move out of this jail.
And even with
wow.
that little bit of improv, now you have like a fucking battle that's happening. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's exciting for the players too, of like, oh, do we like join in the battle or do we just like sneak the fuck out of here?
I think the worst would be after sitting around that whole time, they finally like get out. You've constructed this battle scene to help them get out, and then they get fucking wiped out and they all die.
Yes.
And you're just like, did we really just spend an hour getting out of the jail cell only for you to get killed because none of you could roll?
Yeah. It
Mm.
happens.
Yeah, when
What
the
do
rolls
you
are shit, they're shit.
do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I know
if
that there's
I
a
were a
way to come
player,
back to life.
yeah, well, like if I were a player in that situation, I'd be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is all y'all's fault.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have circle jerked. We should have just got out of here.
None of us should have come down in that jail cell. We should have just stayed dry. I feel bad for taking those 3 loads.
Yeah, it's so difficult to like it also depends on the players too, because you want that little bit of danger, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, of
Otherwise,
course.
you know you're gonna win, and that's not as fun as like the unknown.
True. True. Mm.
But yeah, I think it's also like I always have that little backup plan of like, oh, someone else comes in and like does
Yeah.
something, or
Do you end up having to create characters on the spot?
yeah, I've gotten to the point to where I have like pre-made characters that I just
Oh,
have
hell yeah.
on backup.
Yeah, on
Mm.
the
Just because,
roster. Yes.
yeah, I don't know how many times players will always be like, oh, well, what's this character's name? And I'm like, the Thor.
Yeah.
What's that one's name?
Yeah.
Thor
Yeah,
2.
yeah. Like how many times people are gonna ask that, and I don't know. It's easier to have just like a list of them rather than try to think on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Totally
That
makes sense.
Yeah. Wow.
It's about having the tools, I think, just to be prepared.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's your preference for playing? Being a part of the party or managing it? For you personally?
I think for me, I like being a part of the party
Mm.
Yeah.
because it's also kind of fun to like fuck with the GM a little bit.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because like
How so?
you know that they've prepared a certain thing,
Oh.
and so
Yeah.
you're like I'm that kind of player that's like, oh well, what's this character's name? Are they married? Do they have a family? What's the backstory?
Oh my god, naughty.
Yeah, it's just basically improv,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
just doing that. It's just kind of like testing the improv skills of everyone, and
Mm.
it's just so fun.
Do you have a memory of one of the coolest things that a player has done in your time that you can just remember, like, wow, that was an incredible save, or like that was a super cool move, I can't say no, something like that?
Yeah, There's so many, and what's funny is what's cool to me is probably not cool to anyone else.
Oh.
But there was like this storyline of like this family that has like an apple farm, and like it
Mm.
was very important to them. And then like all the way at the end of the campaign, like after the big huge battle, we're doing like the denouement, the end of the story, like how do things end? And they like just tied in the apple farm and the apples in such a beautiful way that
Wow.
was like it brought tears to my eyes.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like stupid shit like one time two characters like disguise themselves as twins, but then they kept messing each other's names up, and like I don't know. It's just this
Memorable.
silly shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I've never done a campaign before. I have my only like real true experience with D&D is with Baldur's Gate, which I know is I think like something that has really popularized D&D as a concept for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like gamer people cuz I feel like the gaming community and D&D communities have always been very closely intertwined,
Mhm.
but that
And
brought
yet
in
so apart. Yeah.
yeah, that brought
So
in a
far.
brand new subset of gamers in that were interested in it. But that was really my
Mm-hmm.
only like I don't know real connection in my life. Um,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as a player, I would be more of a slut than I am in real life. And I'd
Oh
probably
yeah.
annoy any GM because like we'd run into anything and I'd be like, "Can I fuck it? Can I seduce
No,
it?
that's I feel like there are GMs that love that,
Really?"
that are okay with it. Yeah, it's again, it's about the communication of be like, hey, I really want a lusty ass game. And even though like so there's D&D, there's like Pathfinder, but there's all these other like indie games that are
Mm.
like that's kind of the point of the game.
Mm.
Like there's one called Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Oh,
Holy crap!
oh my
Yeah,
God.
I can give
Oh
you
my
a whole
God.
list of like especially like queer made TTRPGs. They're so
Mm-hmm.
fun, and I think they're easy to get into too.
Mm.
Because with
Yeah.
D&D, I think the biggest barrier is like there's like the fear of embarrassment and all that stuff, but
Right.
also like there's so many rules
A
that
lot
Mm.
of
you're
rules. Yeah.
yeah. Like for me, I was like, oh, I'm afraid people are gonna judge me because I don't know all the rules. And so that's what took me
Oh,
so long to get into it.
Got it.
wow.
But like with other games, like they're super rules light of like you really only roll like two dice ever, and most of it's just the role play. And
Wow.
yeah,
Well, like what when you say there's a lot of rules, what is one that people wouldn't assume is a rule that might be kind of a game breaker or an experience
Oh,
breaker? Because like
yeah.
for me, I mean, I know that there's rules, but I guess I've never thought there's so many of them. You know?
Uh-huh.
mhm. Yeah. So like I think even just the creation of a character. I don't like you mentioned that you looked at a character sheet, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of numbers you have to put in. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reading you have to do to understand like what are spells, what are cantrips, what is my movement speed? What does that mean for me? Like can I use this specific weapon? Like um there's a lot of like terminology that you have to learn to just be able to do things correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of like for me at least I was like
Yeah.
oh that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was
A
going to be
little
like
intimidating.
yeah, I thought we were just going to be rolling some dice and
Having fun.
killing things. Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, hold on.
Yeah.
So back up the horse here before we put it back into the
Hmm.
carriage.
Back it up, Terry.
Back it up. So
Yep,
okay,
yep, yep.
let's say that I'm a human bard. Does that mean
Hmm.
like I cannot um use certain types of weapons?
Yeah, because like
What?
there's some weapons that like um it depends because it depends on the stats that you get.
Yeah.
If you don't have certain stats or if you're not proficient with a certain kind of weapon, if you use that weapon, you roll a disadvantage.
Uh
Like it could be too heavy for you,
Mm-hmm.
or that's all I can think of. Maybe it could be too heavy for you. Yeah.
There's lots of restrictions on certain things too, and like there's way to get around it, but like you'll have to level up, and then when you level up, you can
Oh.
I mean, it
choose
makes the
either.
game fair.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
all the rules. There's just an extensive amount of rules. Like I guess with some spells, you can only cast once a day.
Hmm.
And who knows how long that day is actually going to be in real time, you know? Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like your movement speed and like flying speed and
Hmm.
distance and just there's a lot of rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know in Baldur's, which I think is like a pretty good one for one of what
Yeah.
the D&D rules are. My characters wouldn't be able to do certain magical spells unless they rested again. So I was always like, well, I can't do my spells, so let's go rest one more time. And I'd just always bring my party back and constantly be filling up so that I could do my spells. I'm
Hmm.
assuming that freedom might not be available in like a regular tabletop session.
Yeah, I think for a regular tabletop session, there'd be more pressure with time because it's
Oh.
like if you decide to take a rest right now, like the the ogres are gonna take the princess away, and it will be like 2 days more before you can catch up to them. Things like that.
Oh.
And it also depends on the other party members because it's not just you controlling it, it's like other people. Like,
Hmm.
it's like someone else is playing Karlak, and she's like, no, I don't want to rest right now. I haven't even used any of my rages. Like,
Mm.
yeah,
So that everyone's sort of collaborating and they're like, I'm fine. Sorry, you mismanaged your spells.
Uh-huh.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah.
So,
Because like
like,
certain spells too will like they'll only last until you take a short rest or
right.
a rest. And so if you take that rest, that gets rid of their spell. And so that would like waste it. So
Oh.
it's like a lot of like managing things like that as a
Yeah.
party together, which is really interesting.
Right. And all depending on the scenarios as well, on what you need
Hmm.
to use. Like, if you want to charm somebody, you might potentially have a spell for it. But what if you use it in the wrong moment? All kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
I didn't
What's
even think
also
about any of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
what's cool about in comparison to Baldur's Gate is it's almost okay. This is a hot take, but failure is just as fun as succeeding in tabletop RPGs.
Interesting.
Like
Ooh.
if you get like a natural one,
Hmm.
like you may fail horribly, but it's gonna be so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, or like
Yeah.
interesting at least. Like if you fail and you're like on the verge of death, like that's gonna amp everyone up to be like, oh shit, we gotta do something. Which
Mm.
is more fun than like, oh yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's dead.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, if you were dying, Jer, I'd want to heal you. You know, I
Well,
wouldn't
that's the
leave
thing.
you
I would
on.
never get myself near death.
Oh, you say that now.
I do say that now.
You say that very
You say
confident,
that, and then the
Jer.
GM hears it, and it's like, okay.
Okay, I feel the challenge. That's why I'm respectful, you know?
Then I
Have
seduce the
you?
GM with a 20.
Oh yeah, a $20 bill or a
Mhm.
D20?
Both.
Oh, I was gonna
Um,
ask, have you
mhm.
heard of the so there's an actual play, which is like when people record themselves playing,
Uh-huh.
but there's one on Dimension 20 that's like Dungeons and Drag Queens.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, with Jujubee and
Yeah,
Alaska and who is
Bob.
Bob the Drag
Bob?
Queen and Monet Exchange.
Yes. Oh, so
Yes.
good.
It is
And
so good.
I just downloaded and I just downloaded Dropout this week. I'm like gearing up to
Yes.
watch that this weekend. I'm gonna knock it
Oh
out
my
in a
God.
day. I can't wait to see it.
I yeah. Dungeons and Drag Queens is probably one of my favorites.
Oh,
Fantasy High is really good too.
yeah.
I love Dropout. They do a really good job of editing
Mm,
Hmm.
their plays, so that's not like you're not waiting too long just to see them roll a dice, or
mm,
like add up
Yeah,
their
true.
numbers. But yeah, I think one of the most famous actual plays is Critical Role,
right.
which is
Oh, I've
one of
heard of
the
them. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but they don't really like edit their stuff down, but they're so good at what they do that it's still fun to watch them figure numbers.
I think
Wow.
they do lives on Thursdays on Twitch.
Yep. Hmm.
And I know that like Thursdays are the day where Twitch gets so much traffic because everybody's going in to watch Critical Role. They want to know what's going to happen and what they're going to
Ooh,
do this time around. And
Yeah,
I
and
think,
they've been playing for
yeah, they've been
years.
going for a long time. They have their
long
own
time.
very
Under
successful
the same
podcast.
campaign?
Hmm. No, I think they're on their like third campaign now, but
Wow.
they've been like when Matthew Mercer first started, it was just like in his living room. And the thing is, they're all professional voice actors that have been in like video
Ah,
games.
sick.
And he actually does the voice for Vecna in Dead by Daylight.
Yes.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
Mhm. It's so cool.
Yeah, and they're like really funny too. I've listened to a
Yeah, they're
good
super
couple
funny.
campaigns, like little edited clips and stuff, and they're all extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think they make it seem very accessible, and I think they do a good job at making it not feel like D&D
Hmm.
has to just be for one exclusive group of people.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I don't know how it was for you when you first got into it, but when I was younger and I was growing up, my uncle was into D&D, and he sort of kind of made it seem like it was for a very specific group of like nerd boys. Like if you were not a part of the nerd boy collective, D&D wasn't really for you. And as I got into my college ages, I feel like in the 2000s that was really solidified, but over the last decade, I feel like it's become really accessible and it's not felt like it's been super gate kept
Hmm.
anymore. You were talking about
Yeah.
that inclusivity. Feels like there's been a lot more openness to include people into the conversations.
Yeah, definitely. I think when it first started, it was definitely that straight white cis nerdy guy
Yeah.
vibe.
Mm,
But it's definitely opened up, I think, because of the possibilities that it gives to
right.
really shape your own
Mhm.
narrative. I think it also is really good at building community and communication.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think everyone's kind of coming to realize that it's an avenue for us, whoever you may be.
I love that.
Mhm.
An avenue is nice. You can get where
Yeah.
you want to go. You can find the people that you need to find along the way, and you all get to enjoy that journey together.
Hmm.
That's really cool.
Like a literal journey too. Like
Yeah.
it's fun to just like go through something together and like know that you all pitched in to help figure it out or
Oh,
create it.
yeah. The
Mm.
group effort is like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you bond. And then you
Yeah. And you
bond
have
together as a
memories.
party and as friends.
Yeah. And it's like one thing that Critical Role does is like they do like these inside jokes that they develop through the game.
Mm.
And then since it's broadcast, like everyone's in on this cute little inside joke.
That's so,
Right.
yeah. The inclusivity is pretty great.
Mhm.
I
I love
remember
that.
hearing about D&D way, 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 way back in the day, let's say when it first started, how it was like embarrassing to be a part
Yeah.
of D&D. Like you were seen as like a weirdo, a super nerd for taking out your calculations and your dice. And I'm so glad that it's evolved now, but it took a lot of time for that stigma to go away. Gosh.
Yeah. It's weird because like even the history of it, when
Mhm.
it first came out, people were like, well, kids were getting into it, and then the super religious people were like, it's from the devil.
Right.
There's demons in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
You're
Dungeons and
casting
yeah.
spells, like, and so
Witchcraft.
then yeah, exactly. And so then it became like really taboo for a little bit, and then
Mm-hmm.
it did become like the axis for nerddom.
Mm.
It's kind of like anime is that way too. I'm
Mm.
really big into anime, and like I remember in high school, it was like, you watched anime, you're too old
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
cartoons.
Yes. Yeah.
But
What are
now
you doing watching cartoons? I can't.
there's a fandom now, and it's like
Yeah.
we're starting to realize that it's culture and not just like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
I feel like it's a lot of that. Like it's like that with a lot of things. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think drag queens and like the drag scene, I feel like that's its own culture that you either get it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting when people don't get it and they're like, oh, they're just dressing up as women or whatever. And I'm like, no, you don't understand the entirety of it.
Right.
Right.
Because
There's so
your
much
mind
to
is
it.
so closed that
Mm-hmm.
you don't open yourself up to it.
Right. There's a lot that's like that where you could have one very narrow perspective of what an entertainment form is
Mhm.
and never really allow your mind to open up. And I think that has definitely happened with D&D as well, is that over time there have been people who have very narrow scopes of what it is and they never really allow themselves to see that it could be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's what brought Critical Role up to like the level it is, because when you look at them, they don't look like the typical like super nerdy kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're like full
Right.
grown adults with amazing careers, making tons of money off of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's be honest.
And
Yeah.
their incredible charm and charisma that
Yeah.
allows them to make other people feel involved. I think that is one of the big draw points about them
Mm.
in particular.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're amazing storytelling. Like
Amazing. Yeah.
for me to be pulled into something so integral like that, to like spend money on and just like, I don't know. I think you have to be really good at storytelling to really draw people in the way that they do.
Mm.
Does it ever feel overwhelming? Like that you have all these expectations? Or not
Oh yeah.
really?
I mean, I'm also the kind of person that's overwhelmed by almost anything. I'm like, oh my god, you expect things from me? Okay, let
Oh.
me pull a pencil and paper and like try to figure things out. But I think it brings so much joy
Mm,
to everyone else that it brings me joy that it I constantly remind myself it's a game and that we're
mm,
here to have fun. So then I'm like, okay, I've done my part. I've done what I can. Now
Yeah.
I'm just opening it up to where everyone can do what they want to do too.
I love that.
Uh,
Had kind of talked um, initially about making some characters
yeah.
because I would love maybe some, I don't know, kind of guidance,
Pointers.
pointers. Yeah, for anyone that
Yeah.
maybe might be making one. There's
Yeah.
so many different races to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mhm.
there any benefit to choosing anyone in particular? Like, I know there's dragonborns and humans and um,
Dwarf.
orcs. Yeah,
Halfling.
dwarfs.
Yeah.
There's
I
so
think that's
much.
yeah, like there's so many different things that you can like do to like min max that I think that's part of the barrier
Mm,
is if you have trouble deciding on character stuff like that, like it makes it difficult to like get to the actual play. Because like the first step, you choose a race. Like there's so many different races. Like
Yeah.
if you're a tiefling, you take half fire damage, so there's that to consider. Or you get like a bonus to two different stats if you're a human. Where if you're another race, you get like a +1. Um,
mm,
so like there's so many different options to
Mm-hmm.
do that it's really difficult to say this is the best option that you should do.
mm.
Mm-hmm. It's almost
And
as
then,
if you're walking through that TJ Maxx. Yeah,
yeah,
just
you're
looking
like,
through
what aisle do I
everything in
even
there.
start?
Exactly. And then you're just stuck in the middle of the store and they close. You know, you don't want to do that. I guess
The
the key
security
is
guard's just
being
like, excuse
decisive.
me.
Yeah.
As you're just wandering the front aisles looking at
Yeah.
perfume.
Well, so the key is to be decisive, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
stick
know
to it.
what you want. Because like
Hmm.
once you know, like, hey, I'm gonna be um like a if you think you want to be a bard, then you want high charisma. And then certain races have higher charisma. That'll give you a bonus for charisma.
Mm.
Um,
Ooh,
like
yeah.
there's things like that, but it's also fun to kind of mix it up and be like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I want to be a bard that isn't um or like there's certain stereotypes, right? Like
Mm.
with a
Mm-hmm.
barbarian, they're usually like really stupid,
Mm.
but like it's also fun to play around with that as well.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. An elf barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
a really stupid elf.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Is it
love that.
like so cliche and bland to just be a human?
No, I
Or
don't
do
think
most
so.
No.
people like kind of just pick that because it's easy to understand?
I mean, it's easy to understand, but it's also they get certain bonuses, like the you get two ability modifiers instead of one. So it's like I don't know. It's like for me, it like makes my heart race because I'm like, oh my god, there's so many to choose from. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do?
Mm.
Yeah. Overwhelming.
It's kind of nice to just be like, oh, I'm a human. Like, it
Options
feels.
A, B, C.
Yeah, I think it's also like, what kind of backstory do you want for your character? Because that has a
Oh.
lot to do with it too. Because there's the Drow who are
Mm-hmm.
like the dark elves who usually people don't like them,
Mm.
and I think they also like they take damage like they take much more damage when they're in the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I don't know. There's so many nuances to each type of character that it's like so hard to get into details without just like
Mm.
getting lost.
Yeah, definitely.
So, do you come up with a prompt first to the players and then say, base your characters on the prompt? Like, what I
Sort
mean
of.
is, like, this is the storyline. We're going to be underwater in Atlantis,
Mhm.
and pick your characters. Like,
Yeah. I definitely like to give a heads up of like what kind of campaign I'm doing. Like
uh-huh.
one campaign I was like, "Hey, this particular campaign you're going to be protecting like a base, like a your house."
Mm.
Or this other one where it's like, "Hey, this one's kind of like a mystery, so you're basically like the Scooby Doo gang."
Yeah.
Cute.
So like
Okay.
just kind of like vibes.
Yeah.
I like to give vibes of like, hey, like this one campaign I'm working on now. It's they're journeying into the Feywild, so there's lots of magic and mystical stuff.
Oh,
And
cool.
so
Ooh.
yeah, I was like, I just gave them movies of like, do you know Stardust? Like it's
Uh-huh.
kind of like that vibe where
Uh,
like you meet these crazy characters and there's a little bit of magic and everyone's kind of quirky. Like it gives them an idea to help them
huh.
build their character. Otherwise, there's like I
Yes.
said, there's so many options.
Yes, yes, yes. And then it becomes overwhelming.
I just had a random thought.
Yeah.
If someone is really interested in D&D, but
Mhm.
they have a lot of ideas and they think they could narrate a story well, but they've never played ever. Is
Mhm.
it sort of like applying for a job? Like if you're like, you know what, I think I'd be a great manager at the Walmart, so I'm gonna apply for it. And they're like, bitch, go work at the register for a bit. And then you can maybe be a manager in about a decade, but you got to work at the register for a bit. Is that typically how that goes, or could you just say, you know what, I think I want to GM, and then you could just, without any experience, do it?
I think I think the latter is probably more likely.
Really?
Yeah, because it's
Ah.
like usually like how I became a GM was like I really want to play D&D more, but no
Mhm.
one's inviting me to play, so I'm just gonna make my own game and invite my friends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like it's a little more work, but like I still get to play.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in fact, I get to play more than one character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
So, like, that is something that people could do if they're
Hmm.
interested and they feel like, well, I just don't have the experience, but I have ideas and I want to make games.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
yeah, and like, I don't know all the rules
Right.
in the core rule book and the monster manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide. Like, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's like so many expansions too. And
Yeah.
so I always make it very clear with my players, like, hey, if anything seems off, if I miss a certain thing, feel free to speak up. I'm open to like rewind and do it the right way, or like we can always revisit things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's smart. So,
Even like
like,
Matthew Mercer on Critical Role, like he'll mess up on a rule and people will like call him out and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go back and fix that."
oh,
So
cool.
yeah, even him, like professional GM making thousands of dollars, millions probably actually, but like if he can mess up and people are okay with it, then I'm like, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Human.
We're all
Definitely.
fucking
You're
human,
not going to
Yeah.
get stoned or anything for it.
right?
No. No.
So, like, going back to character creation, how many
Hmm.
points total do you have to, like, allocate to your character? Because I know that there's things like charisma, strength, what? Intelligence.
Hmm.
How many
Yeah.
points do you have total to allocate to that stuff? Because in games that riff off of tabletop, like Fallout or Baldur's, give you like a certain amount of points at the beginning, and then
Hmm.
you figure out what you want to do with those points, how you want to move them around your board. You only get like that certain amount until you level up.
Yeah. I think it actually there's like several different ways. Excuse me.
Oh.
So I think Jazz was talking about D&D Beyond, and um, I
Mm-hmm.
highly recommend it. It's such a cool tool to have because it
Mhm.
helps
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Um, so you can do either a point buy system where you have a certain amount of points that you can like divvy up,
Mm.
or there's like the standard scores, which is like 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8, and you just plug those in wherever. Or there's also like a special one where you roll 4 6-sided dice and then add the top 3, and then you do that 6 times, and then those are your numbers that you plug in. So it's a little
So
more
much.
lottery. Yeah, I know. See,
Ah,
when
that
when you
one
start
sounds
explaining it like
fun.
that, you're like, oh, that's a lot of math and
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
like,
But it's simple math. It's
My little
simple math. It's
homosexual
1 to
brain hears
6.
math and it says, no, Jasmine.
That's me. I
not a
know.
math gay.
I'm not a math gay.
Definitely didn't go to school for math. I'll tell you that. No.
But
But it's simple
it's
math. It's
yeah,
simple
and it's
math.
easier when it's in person and you're like, hey, roll 4 dice
Mm.
and then take the top 3 and add them. Okay, write that down. Okay, do it again 6
Mm.
more times. Then like it's easier
Wow.
to do that than to like explain it,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I see.
because then it just sounds like math. You don't want it
Yeah.
to be math. You want it to be
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah. Well, I think the dice roll is everything. That's like the best part.
Yeah, it's like
Honestly.
gambling.
Yeah.
Mhm. I love dice rolling. It's one of my favorite things.
Honestly, it's so cool shaking the hand, shaking the wrist, letting it
Yeah.
fly. Why not?
And like the fact that everyone can like see it at the same time too.
Yeah.
And like if you get a natural 20, everyone's like, yeah. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool to be in a room like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you ever had somebody like roll the dice so hard it like just goes off the table, but you still go with whatever the number is, or do you usually make them roll it again so that it ends up on the table? Because I know there's house rules with stuff like that.
It has to
Mhm.
be.
I like to make sure that they keep it on the table so that there's not any like accusation of like actually someone kicked it or actually
Mm,
that was
It was a 17.
9 and not a
yeah,
6 or yeah.
yeah.
Even on Critical Role, there used to be one cast member on there that they kicked out before they went like
Ooh.
Oh,
viral. If you want to know the tea, he was like in the original campaign, but he would like constantly fudge his dice rolls, and
oh,
No.
people called him out on it. And like he also was just like kind of gross. But
Oh.
yeah, the Critical Role community like they're always like, don't talk about him. Like
Yeah,
we
we're
don't
not a
like
talk
he's
about
part of it
big.
Bruno.
anymore. Yeah, exactly. He was Bruno.
Damn. I have to ask you randomly, what is your dice set color that you have? Because I know that everybody has their own dice set that they use all the time.
Mhm. I have several. Um, I use one that is this like teal blue.
Mm.
I have special D20s. So there's one that's like metal, it's like a gold, and it's heavy.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
instead of a one, it
Yeah.
says the word fuck.
Ah, yes.
Wait, I love that.
Wow, that makes it
Yeah.
so monumental.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because it's an absolute fail, right? A
Yeah.
one?
A natural one is
Oh,
an absolute critical failure.
oh my God,
Damn.
critical. Oh my
Critical.
That's
Actually,
terrible.
it's so silly. One of my TikToks that was pretty popular. It was like, I did like a daily roll
Mm.
for luck of the day, and like my dice
Ooh.
got stuck in my little dice tower, which is like a skull. It's like in the eye, so I had to like poke the eye out just to get it to go all the way down, and then it landed on fuck, and I was like, well, that's your luck for today, I guess.
Uh, wow.
Do you have dice?
I do. I have a lot of dice.
Really?
I have so
What
many.
color?
Well, okay. So I've got rainbow dice. Like they're literally one in every single color set. But the dice that I have in my bedside table is turquoise. It's this really beautiful turquoise set. But I had made a tabletop game a couple of years ago. So I bought dice for
Nice.
that.
You made one?
I did.
Wow.
It's based off of Betrayal House on the Hill. I don't know if you either one of you have ever played that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So, Betrayal House on the Hill is a tabletop game, and there are people that go to this mansion, but
Mm.
it's not really explained why they go there. There's like a little girl, a little boy, and like a priest. It's like a really
Okay.
random,
Maybe.
eclectic
Yeah.
group of people that go,
Yeah.
and something happens that they have to deal with, usually monsters, and they'll get usually killed, usually really badly killed. I've yet to win a betrayal game. So I made
Wow.
a version of that that I wanted to have a little more backstory about. So
Mm-hmm.
I made it where it was similar. There are people that go to a mansion, but their reasons are different.
Hmm.
There's like a lady who loses her cat while she's walking it. So she like goes inside to try and find her cat because it runs through the front door. There's someone who goes in because they're like a ghost hunter and they've heard stories for decades of people dying in this mansion. So you have your own like huge character sheet that I wrote down that has stats and stuff in it.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Um there's like you have your personal goal that you're trying to do. So the board builds as you explore each room. You like put tiles down and such.
Mm-hmm.
And as you explore each one, incidents could happen which could trigger everybody having to participate. So there is the built-in option. It's not super common that it should happen, but you could finish your personal goal and you win the game before like an incident happens. But if an
Okay.
incident happens, then like ghosts could be around or monsters could show up and then everyone has to deal with it. And every character has their own like motivations and stuff. So there are some scenarios where the game tells you to collaborate, but your character sheet says you're a traitor because of who you are. Tell everybody you're collaborating with them and play the game, but you have different win conditions that nobody's supposed to know about.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like complex.
Yeah.
If you created that game, you're basically a GM plus.
Yes.
I would
Plus
love
more.
to GM. I'm not going to lie. I have so
You'd be
many
great at
ideas.
it. Honestly, you just need someone in the party that knows some rules so that you can be like, hey, how do you do that? And then
Right.
they can explain it. Like, as long as you're kind of like there to help guide the story, like I think you'd be great, honestly.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Anyway, sorry. All that to say, I have a bunch of different dice. I don't know why I ranted about my game. I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
That was fascinating.
I was like
I wanna
surprised
play.
and just in awe. I know. I'm like, can we play? Let's just drop the podcast right now.
Honestly, let's go right now.
I need my dice. Be right back.
Oh my God.
Right? No, there's like legitimately so many stories. I think I wrote down like 70 scenarios that could happen. And I was just sitting, did it through most of lockdown, where I was like just sitting down and like writing story after story after story of things that could happen. And there's cards that could be played through the game that could also affect those stories. So like if a certain item is in play, the entire scenario could go differently because of that item that's in play. And again, like some characters have their own personal goals that even though they are collaborating, they still have different win conditions. And one time we were playing and Jake goes, I just won. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, oh, well, I'm the lady with the ghost husband and I found him. And he just told me in my character book that I just won. So you could all suck it.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because there's such a thin line between tabletop games and tabletop RPGs because you're role playing in that situation. So it's like, I don't know. I think that's so interesting.
Do you think that's the biggest difference between them is role playing?
I think the biggest difference between them is that there's more like rules, like conditional, like winning conditions.
Yeah.
Whereas tabletop RPG, like it's a big joke of like, oh, you played D&D, did you win? Like there's no winning. It's just storytelling that happens.
Right.
Like you could win a battle, but like that isn't the end of the game.
Yeah.
How long does it take to get to the end, typically in your experience?
It's tough. It like for me, when the module is over, like when the book has run out of like storyline, or whenever the GM is like, this is a good closing point. Like
Right.
the main objective of the adventure is complete, then we can be done. But sometimes people have so much fun, they're like, well, what
Let's
do we
keep
do now?
going.
What's
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
Like, what about the next town over? Can we help them? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's like one of the best things to hear as a GM of like, they don't want to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's super joyful.
Because you've created
I
a
like-
world that they don't want to leave from.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, you should totally GM because you've created worlds. And like, just the fact that you mention it, I'm already like, I want to be in that world.
Yeah.
I know. I want to play. You would be so good, Jer. Honestly.
Stop.
No. No.
This is supposed to be
you would
about
so
Apollo.
good.
No.
Wow.
Well, it's about D&D, which is
Yeah.
collaborative storytelling.
True.
So you're part of this.
True. Do you ever, speaking of collaborative storytelling, do you ever have anybody that's just so bad at improv that it's not that it disrupts the game at all, it just makes it kind of hard to move the story forward? Because like maybe everybody else is really in it, but then there's that one person who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna swing my sword at him. You're like, okay, anything
Yeah.
else? Any embellishments that you want to add? Swinging my sword.
Yeah,
The
I
end.
think I think you find ways to help them out.
Mm,
It's like a lot of times I'll ask, "What do y'all want to do?"
yeah.
And then people don't know what to say. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just give them options if they
Mm,
want it
Yeah.
and
DM's
just kind
there
of
to
leave it
help.
open.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I love having players that also help each other.
Mm,
As that
Mm-hmm.
like maybe that person is just not super personable
mm,
and like they'll have another character that kind of latches onto them and like becomes their buddy to kind of help them with things too.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh, yeah.
I like that.
yeah.
Having someone there that can kind of help rope you back in, make you feel included in that. I think that's
Mhm.
important.
Big time.
I feel like I would maybe be a little like too exuberant in some of my storytelling if I were in a campaign with people
Mhm.
because I tend to get really immersed and I'd be like, and then this and blah 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 blah, and I'd be looking around the room and everyone would be like, yeah, so I'm just gonna cast a spell if that's all right. I don't need to jump off the banister in a double axle flip or whatever the hell you just said.
Mhm.
It's also like it's interesting because I think a lot of my friends or the people that I play with are kind of the same way.
Mm,
Because my professional life, I'm an actor.
mm-hmm,
Like I have a theater company, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm in the entertainment industry, and
mm-hmm,
so a lot of the people I play with, like they have vocal training. They went to
Uh-huh.
acting school, and
right.
so like we're all pretty knowledgeable about like how to make choices and share the
Mm,
spotlight.
yeah.
And
Yes.
so I think I kind of got lucky in that sense to where I don't have that person that's like, yeah, I take my sword out and I stab it.
Yeah. The uncreative person.
The
Right.
uncreative.
The uncreative.
Yeah.
But I think something that I notice a lot. So Brennan Lee Mulligan is the GM for Dimension 20.
Mm-hmm.
He is honestly, I prefer him to Matthew Mercer because he
Yeah.
makes whatever the players do seem cool, no
Mm.
matter what it is. Because he'll like someone could be like, "Oh yeah, I take out my sword and I stab him." He's like, "You unsheathe your sword and you thrust it forward," and like he makes noises for
Yeah.
the characters and the enemies, and like I think that's what makes him. Uh, it's his way of making the players have fun. Is like whatever they do, it's awesome.
I
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh. The uplifting.
I
It's
Yeah.
love that.
amazing. I want to be a part of the group so bad. Oh my God.
What's stopping you?
I
Yeah.
can't find people. I don't know anybody. I'm here
Well,
by
you know me
myself. I
now.
was, oh, well, yeah. I was literally on Mr. Bezos' website
Not Mr.
and looking
Bezos.
up, oh, Mr. Bezos is going to send me a gift pretty soon because I was looking up literally solo D&D campaigns on how to play by myself. I would so
Yes.
love to be a part of a group, believe me. Ugh,
There are a lot of
it'd be
I
internet
amazing.
groups
will.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a website that I just signed up for. It's called
Uh-huh.
startplaying.games. And
Ooh.
basically, there's like professional GMs. They'll like announce when they have a game happening. Some people charge, some people don't. It ranges from like $5 to $20 a session. But
Mhm.
if you want to like just get going, that's a good way to. It's all digital too.
And what is it again?
Startplaying.games.
Oh yeah, man.
Very
I'm not
nice.
sponsored, but
But they're amazing.
if
I
you want to
would
donate,
so.
donate to Jared.
Yeah.
Keep this podcast going. That's more important than
Yeah.
anything. Okay, so we're kind of getting to a wrap up place. If
Mhm.
y'all don't mind, I would love like a quick recap of who your character would be. If you, Jasmine, I know you made something before this, and I know
Yes,
you have a
I
lot of
did.
characters you like to use, Apollo. So if you kind of want to think about maybe whatever your main go-to is, have it
Your
be a
Okay.
favorite,
quick,
maybe?
like, quick overview of what your backstory is, what you're trying to do in the world that you are gonna drop that character into. If you want to
Okay.
start, Jasmine.
Yeah. Okay. So I was up. I was looking at stuff. So my character, first of all, his name is Ziggy Highshine.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He's a halfling, and he's a sneaky ass rogue.
Hell
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a little tramp, and long time ago he lived with his mom. And they grew up in a bar. His dad was there hanging out. There's a big portrait of him in the bar. He's man of the house, you know what I mean? And dad one day literally left out of my life, walked out because he saw this like map that this dude was trying to sell him, of this horde, like this horde out in the mountains, and he just up and left us. And
Sorry,
so
that
I
was
had to
me. I
take
was
care
the
of him.
whore in the mountains.
Yeah, he went after her, and it. Anyway, I was there all alone with my mom, and I had to take care of her. And the bar was kind of getting a little rowdy and crazy, so I had to like sneak stuff all the time. Ziggy would be in and out of the shadows, sneaking stuff, and he had a little gang of friends, and his gang of friends would be like, "I'm hungry," and Ziggy'd be like, "I got you," and go get him stuff, and it'd be in the dead of night, and all he wants to do is like go after his dad and be like, "Screw you, dad! You left
Mm.
me and my mom." He wants to like confront his dad, go find him, out in this horde. So that's me, dude.
Hell yeah.
That's Ziggy, man.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
twinkle toes, you know, quiet in the
Toes.
night. And he's a little guy, little
Just
halfling
a little
guy.
guy.
He's a little guy, sneaky as hell. Okay,
I love the little
bright
guys.
red hair.
It's so fun.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters is actually also a halfling rogue.
Oh,
And
Oh.
yeah, his name was Doatron Fairfield,
ooh.
but
Okay.
Dwight for short.
Oh my god.
Yeah, based off of the DVD
Yes.
character. And he
Yes.
he had like this like voice that was kind of nasally. I think I base the character off of a voice that I can do, and then I run with that.
Yeah.
But he was also like the youngest of 5 children, all brothers, and everyone else is like a guard for the kingdom. But he keeps getting into trouble, and he, yeah, and I think that was for the campaign was called Dungeons and Daddies.
Oh.
It was the
Ooh.
one I did with Banana actually.
I love that.
And it was like we were trying to save the kingdom because the prince, we were all there for the ball to like get the hand,
Mhm.
the to woo the prince basically. But he goes into like this coma where we had to like go to different worlds to figure out what's happening and save him.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah.
That sounds so cool.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
I want to be a daddy.
I
It
want to
was
go
very
find
fun.
daddies.
Yeah.
I also want to be a daddy. I
Mhm.
also one of my go-to voices, Jer has probably heard this, but like it's the street Apollo voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of
Yeah.
like a big guy that's not very
Yeah,
smart.
dude.
And I played like a Minotaur
Oh my god.
barbarian, and his name was Steph.
Steph, it's Zig. Steph, like, what's it like up there, man? It must be crazy.
Oh, it's pretty
Clouds up
great.
there in the sky. It's so tiny down here.
Oh, but I bet you get a good view of like Ankles.
Uh, they don't call me an ankle biter for no reason. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
You
okay.
get it, Steph, huh? You know.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy gets it.
I can bite ankles too. They
Yeah.
just have to be in the air.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
I'm
Yes.
obsessed with these.
Yeah, but like it's interesting that like just these two characters talking is fun for me.
Yeah,
Like we don't even have to
Yeah.
be fighting anything. It's just like they're fucking silly and fun.
I love this.
Yes. Ugh.
What about you, Jer?
For me, I don't know if I've really thought too much about like class, race, um, anything else, but one go-to character that I usually toss into scenarios if I have to improv something quickly is a character named Carson, who is an investigator, and
Ooh.
he has his own detective agency where he solves crimes that people need done discreetly. Anytime that maybe they can't trust the police or the government, they go to him because he'll do it with care and caution. And he has a lot of background in science, in medicine, things like that. And he's also very well studied so that he can understand evidence in a way that maybe the police might not interpret the same way. He's also very charming and charismatic to the point where, or more charming more than anything, is that people are always sort of distracted by how attractive he is and don't always take him very seriously as a detective because they're like, oh, you're just a hot, pretty boy. You're not really here to do anything that serious. So go ahead, pretty boy, do what you need to do, but you're probably not going to get this done.
But he's actually very serious.
He's very serious and he's very good at what he does, but people usually just think he's pretty and ditzy and frivolous.
Would you like if you were to play this character, do you see it in sort of like a noir kind of setting?
100%. I thought
Yeah.
about at one point doing like a noir radio show type thing where, because I have maybe 3 or 4 stories of him doing his thing and doing little minor investigations. And he has this ongoing thief that he's been chasing for many years, but he's never seen him. And in the back of my head, I can't help but wonder if this thief is actually him and it's sort of like a Jekyll and Hyde situation, or that's something that Carson worries about, is maybe this thief that he's always hunting is actually him and he's not remembering.
And he's solving his own crimes.
Potentially. Or if this is an actual person that's out there that's just a specter, you know, because they're so good at hiding in the shadows and getting things done. But they send him letters and tease him like, hey, I, you know, killed this person, or I stole this item. Are you going to come find me? Come get me. And so he gets these physical pieces of mail taunting him and teasing him. And he doesn't know if this is a real person or if he's maybe chasing himself, because he is so well read and he's investigated so much that he can't help but wonder, like, am I Jekyll and Hyde?
Yeah.
But that might not be the case. He might be chasing a real person.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know. He's never found
fine.
this person. But they're always there. They're always doing things. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be so cool to play as a character.
right?
On Dimension 20, Jazz, if you are interested, there's a campaign called Mentopolis.
Uh-huh.
And the whole it's like noir realm. Like each person has like that kind of character, like different characters in the noir world.
Yes.
But it's also like they're not actual people. They're all like in the mind of one person trying to figure out a mystery that's happening on the outside world.
Oh.
Yeah. And yeah, just and they don't use D&D. They use a system called Kids on Bikes,
Uh-huh.
which is like super rules light, and they like made it into their own thing. So it's like Oh, that's one thing I didn't talk about. Is like there's so much tea with D&D right now because it got bought up by Hasbro.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, and so like
Bad?
there's a lot, yeah, a lot of bad stuff. Like where they're
Oh.
trying to like trademark everything and not allow
Mm,
people to mod their stuff and
of
What?
capitalism.
But
course.
how could that even
Capitalism.
be? Girl
Yeah,
capitalism, that's what it is. Oh.
we're just buying everything up. But
Mm.
Mm.
anyway, definitely check out Mintopolis because it's amazing.
Yes, I will.
Thank you
Well,
for sharing so many resources. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing so much
yes.
information today and for just speaking so candidly. Unfortunately, we're kind of at the end of this, but
yeah,
I had a
it
really
was
good
such
time
a
hearing
pleasure.
about you and your
Mhm.
journey as a GM and your experiences you've had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
if y'all ever
I'm
want to
like
play,
so ready to play.
let
Wow.
me know, Jazz. I'm happy to play with you.
Oh, it would be an honor. It would be incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a long campaign, we could do like a one shot where we just kind of like try it out.
Yeah. Chair.
Oh my God,
There.
you might do it. You might finally do your thing. You
This
have
is
your
a
whole
dream.
character set up and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway.
Period.
Let's do it.
I love this. Well, thank you for doing this with us, Apollo. Thank you, Jasmine.
Oh.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
listening. Thank you for tuning in. We will chit chat with you very soon. Remember, you're doing a fantastic job. You are doing the best you can, and that is all you can do. See you in the flip. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.